President Muhammadu Buhari arrived Sochi, Russia for African-Russia Summit. Prospect of expanding trade and investment opportunities between Nigeria and Russia. Ministerial departments and agencies continue their defense of their 2020 budget proposals. And INEC engages broad spectrum of electoral stakeholders, promises to make a difference in Kogi-Bayelsa governorship elections. Welcome to Panorama today. I am Habiba Oladipo. President Muhammadu Buhari is in Sochi, Russia, the Russia Federation, ahead of the African-Russia Summit beginning on Wednesday. The summit, expected to last 3 days, will focus on exploring and expanding opportunities in security, trade and investment, security, science and technology, as well as gas production. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has the report.
The Nigerian Air Force 001 aircraft conveying President Muhammadu Buhari and his entourage arrived Sochi International Airport at 12:30 Tuesday morning local time. The president, accompanied by the governors of Ekiti, Gombe and Zamfara states, was received by a high-powered Russian government delegation led by the mayor of the city of Sochi as well as the Nigerian ambassador to Russia. Also at the airport were the Minister of Foreign Affairs, National Security Advisor and other senior government officials. At the Russia-Africa Summit, President Buhari will join other African and Russian leaders to bring fresh perspectives on some global issues and challenges like nuclear technology, energy development, digital transformation, environment, technical security, mining and steel, education, agriculture, infrastructure, and development strategies.
More than 30 heads of state and prime ministers have pledged their commitment to be here. President Muhammadu Buhari is part of those leaders that have accepted to be here. So it's an important one for our continent. It is important for Russia. At the end of this summit, it is hoped that Nigeria and African countries would put together for themselves a new security architecture for the continent that should hopefully, take from the Russian experience in protecting cities against terrorism, in protecting our borders against infiltration by criminals, inflow of weapons, of drugs, smuggling, and illegal explosives. So security is important. We obviously would expect developments in trade and investment, which lies at the heart of the meeting itself. And such matters that may also impinge on culture, identity, and sovereignty of nations on the continent.
President Buhari is scheduled to meet with President Vladimir Putin of Russia to further strengthen relations in security, trade and investment, as well as building partnership that will enhance Nigeria's huge gas potentials.
Nigerians will not forget Russian support for the unification of Nigeria, the support they gave to Nigeria during the civil war years, at a time when some of our traditional friends had deserted us. Russia is still doing so much for us, dealing with the procurement of military hardware in tackling the insurgency, particularly in the northeast. It is important that President Buhari is here at a time when the effort is being made to push out permanently the insurgency in the northeast and infiltration by Islam in West Africa groups. So I believe that a lot will be discussed on matters of military procurement. The Russians have achieved perhaps the greatest success anybody could using the gas resources available to their own country. Nigeria would be talking to Russians on possibilities in enhancing and utilizing our enormous gas resources. There'll be discussion on power, iron and steel. Don't forget Ajaokuta. So all of these things are important in the view of the president, and they will be put on the table.
An African Business Forum, which will bring together African and Russian business leaders, will also be held towards enhancing Russian investments in Africa and promoting African business interests in the Russian Federation. From Sochi, Russia, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
True the saying that no country lives in isolation, Nigeria inclusive. That explains the exploring and expanding opportunities in security, science and technology, gas exploration and trade, with President Muhammadu Buhari leading the way. Now the president joins other African leaders at a 3-day summit with Russia's President Putin. What does this entail for Nigeria and Africa? Monso Damian Dati will tell us.
The diplomatic ties between Nigeria and the Soviet Union dates back to 1960 and reached its peak during the 1967 Civil War, following political and military assistance by the Union to the Nigerian government. Russia renewed relations in 1991 with Nigeria following the disintegration of the Soviet Union. Nigeria have enjoyed scholarships to study in diverse professional fields and levels in Russia, which also support the country in African countries with arms and many more. Russia's President Vladimir Putin is renewing interest and aspirations in Africa as his government places high premium on geopolitical relations in pursuit of Russia's assertiveness in the global arena. The most recent intervention in Nigeria being a fresh offer by a Russian company to rehabilitate a Jakarta Steel company in Kogi State.
Since they were the original developer of that place, and steel mill, the Jakarta is very critical to industrialization of Nigeria. We have tried the Indians, we know what happened. So I think it would be a very good thing to allow the Russians to see how they can revamp and reestablish Jakarta so that we can realize our desired goals.
What prospects are there for Nigeria in these renewed relations?
You will recall that even during the era of Cold War, Nigeria was a staunch member of the non-aligned movement. They support one against the other. So it shouldn't be any problem whether it's Chinese, whether it's the American, whether it's the Russian. Nigeria is open to bilateral relations and multilateral relations. As long as all agreements are well vetted and make sure that Nigeria's interest is paramount in whatever agreement we sign with any other country, not just Russia.
Whatever there is in, experts say Russia, like America, China, European Union and other top global players, cannot but count Africa, the continent with natural resources and a youthful population that are assets too precious to ignore. Monso Damian Dati, NTA News.
With increasing customers' database for banks and generous financial safety nets have been observed to have increased bank risk and systemic fragility, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has therefore called for a rethinking of the short and long-term implications of the use of bailout and bridge banks and their sustainability in the coming years. This was during the unveiling of a book titled 30 Years of Deposit Insurance System in Nigeria. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports.
It's my very special pleasure to formally unveil the book 30 Years of Deposit Insurance System in Nigeria.
That was Vice President Yemi Osinbajo unveiling the book that chronicles the management of deposit insurance, which came into effect in Nigeria since 1999. The book of 256 pages highlights the past, present, and the future of deposit insurance in Nigeria. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says the institution deserves all the accolades it's receiving, but warns that the management should not be carried away by the ovation as more challenges lie ahead. The Vice President describes this challenge as the dynamics of engaging the future of Nigerians' financial safety systems.
There's no question that regulatory institutions must now spend more time and resources on researching the nature and management of these risks, such as the speed of transactions, cross-border transactions, money laundering concerns, and data privacy and security issues. training to meet the required compliance capacity will also be very crucial.
Vice President Osinbajo says without a doubt the future is exciting, but calls for a proactive, nimble and savvy institutions constituting Nigerian financial safety net. As the Vice President notes, there is much work to be done. Other dignitaries at the event commend the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, promised their support and equally underscored the need for NDIC to be prepared for future challenges.
The 9th National Assembly is not unaware of the operational challenges faced by NDIC in the discharge of its functions and will be readily available to ensure success by giving accelerated hearing on the proposed amendments to the NDIC Act 2006, either to presented for consideration to the 8th National Assembly.
The regulatory capacity we have today was built to address the risks of yesterday. We must
agencies in that regard.
In Abuja, Jide Onifade, NT News.
The Federal Ministry of Health is to spend 5 billion naira on polio eradication and procurement of vaccines in 2020. The Minister of Health, Dr. Osagie Ehanire, was speaking at the 2020 Budget Defense Session before the Senate Joint Committee on Health and Basic Health. Ignatius Nkwo reports.
Deliberations on the 2020 appropriation bill between the legislature and the executive continued at the National Assembly. Before the Senate Joint Committees on Health and Primary Health were the Ministers of Health, Dr. Osagie Ehanire, and Minister of State for Health, Oloronimbe Mamora. The minister listed some of the major factors of the sector in the 2020 budget of 427.3 billion naira.
Happily, we are hopeful that polio eradication will be concluded this year. Nigeria will be proud to receive the certificate of freedom from polio.
We have to be able to provide succor to the poor Nigerians that suffer from cancer.
Primary health care is to receive 44.4 billion naira. The Senate Committee on Basic and Secondary Education scrutinized the 2020 budget of the education sector. The Minister of Education, Adamu, accompanied by the Minister of State for Education, Emeka Nwajuba, defended the proposals, during which he announced the proposed establishment of 6 federal science and technical colleges, 2 federal universities, and 2 federal polytechnics.
We have obtained presidential approval to establish the following institutions in 2020. Number 1, 6 federal science and technical colleges, 1 each in Kogi, Jigawa, Kano, Ebonyi, Imo, and Oyo states.
This committee will try as much as possible to ensure that we give you a legislative support to ensure that the proposals are realized as much as I can.
The National Assembly Joint Committee on Interior scrutinized the budgets of Nigerian Correctional Services, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, during which the committee promised to provide the needed financial allocation to the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps to enable it to recruit 10,000 workers for effective service delivery. The Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas, also defended the budget of the Nigerian Navy. The Navy boss identified fleet renewal as major impediment, as 14.5 billion naira has been earmarked for fleet renewal in 2020.
Although the federal government has in recent time boosted the renewal of Nigerian Navy's fleet with some major platforms, additional operating vessels are required to enhance the Navy's presence at sea.
You have been able to sustain the security threats along our territorial waters. That is their main mandate.
Senate Committee on Trade and Investment met with the Corporate Affairs Commission and other agencies under it. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTN News.
And now to the judiciary. The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has granted the request of the convener of Revolution Now protest, Omoyele Sowore, that the bail conditions imposed on him should be varied. This followed his inability to meet the conditions of his bail. Olabode Arewa reports.
Taking a cue from the recent ruling by a Federal High Court in Abuja, which varied the bail conditions earlier imposed on a detained journalist, Mr. Jones Abiri, Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who is the counsel to Omoyele Sowore and Olawale Bakare, told the court that his clients have not been able to fulfill the bail conditions. Falano argued that Shirore and Bakari's livelihoods were in jeopardy due to their continued detention. Counsel to the DSS, Azan Liman, SAN, however, argued that there were no compelling reasons to ask for bail variation. Relying on the case of Asari Dokubo versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Liman argued that the freedom of speech and the freedom of association being touted by Shirore were not superior to national security. In consideration of the discretionary powers of the court, the presiding judge, Justice Ijoma Ojukwu, vacated the requirement for Shirore's sureties to deposit 50 million naira with the court registry. The court also reduced Bakari's bail to 20 million naira.
Neither of them is now required to get a surety to deposit money in line with the decisions of higher courts.
The initial deposit of 50 million naira shall no longer be paid, but they shall execute security for bond.
Omoyele Shirore and Nalo Ali Bakari were arraigned by the DSS on charges of treasonable felony and causing insult to the president. The case is adjourned to the 6th and 7th of November for accelerated hearing. In Abuja, Olabode Arewa, NTA News.
This is Panorama on NTA. It's time to take a break. We'll be back shortly with more reports.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Together, no matter where you come from, no matter your religion, we are one. Let's live together. Let's stop fighting each other. Let us live as one. It doesn't matter where you come from, your tribe or religion, man, woman or child. It doesn't matter who you are. Put Nigeria first. No matter where you come from, no matter your religion, we are one. Let's live together. How can we develop when we're always in crisis? Families have become refugees in their country. No matter our differences, show some understanding. No matter where you come from, no matter your religion, we are one. Let's live together.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
And to electoral matters now, the Independent National Electoral Commission has commenced engagement with a broad spectrum of electoral stakeholders in its determination to make a difference in the forthcoming Bayelsa and Kogi governorship elections. Timothy Yusuf was at a policy dialogue on the Commission's preparedness for the forthcoming polls in Kogi State.
2 of the 4 out-of-season elections for governorship are scheduled for Kogi and Bayelsa states for November 16. Already, preparations are almost being completed, but INEC is still perfecting strategies to ensure a hitch-free poll, especially in Kogi, which has history of violence during elections.
We know what Kogi is. All the indicators are there. The early warning signs indicate that there will be violence, and we cannot overlook this.
It is something that is worrisome and needs to be tackled and nipped in the bud ahead of November 16.
With about 1.7 million registered voters and collected PVCs of about 1.5 million across 21 local government areas, INEC is engaging stakeholders to ensure that 16,132 ad hoc staff slated for the election conduct free, fair and credible governorship election.
Elections is basically a grassroots thing. So if we get it right at the local government and state level, we will get it right everywhere.
INEC resident electoral commissioners for Kogi and Niger states, Professors James Akpam and Sam Egu, are among members of the civil society organizations, academia and other experts interrogating the critical issues ahead of the election. They believed that the challenges experienced in the last general elections will be significantly minimized, if not eradicated, with adequate and enhanced smart card readers and other logistics already put in place.
What we're doing now is to recruit and train the ad hoc staff.
INEC would require to do a number of things in order to build integrity into the outcome of the November 16 election.
The policy dialogue was organized by INEC's research and training organ, known as the Electoral Institute. Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed says the federal government is not in any guise inching towards gagging the Nigerian media. The minister stated this when he visited the management of Sun newspapers in Lagos. Anthony Forson reports.
Describing the media as partners in the Nigerian project, Lai Mohammed said it is unacceptable for media practitioners to encourage hate speech and promote fake news.
Today, fake news and hate speech has a real, present and imminent threat to the very survival of this country. That's why I've come once again to solicit your support in our fight, our battle and crusade against fake news and hate speech.
He restated that the presidential recommendation for the NBC reforms is born out of genuine concern to sanitize the broadcast industry and eliminate monopoly for a healthy growth and practice.
Today, with the industry being liberalized, we've seen the advantages of technology and liberalization. But unfortunately, in the broadcast industry today, we still have a lot of monopoly, and the monopolies everywhere in the world in the broadcast industry has been broken. It's been broken. It's not enough for you to have the financial strength or financial might.
Responding to questions on the current partial border closure by the federal government, the minister said it is in the interest of the nation and a deliberate move to save the nation's economy from saboteurs. Managing Director and Editor-in-Chief of the Sun newspapers, Onuoha Uke, expressed gratitude for the visit and commended the minister for the insight he has provided on government's programs and policies. He, however, appealed for consistent interface between government and the media for a broader understanding of government's intentions. In Lagos, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
Nigeria is set to compete with technological advanced nations in the areas of science and technology in the nearest future. This is because of the exhibition of some scientific performance of students identified in the ongoing NTA ETV Science and Arts Children Expo 2019. Ikechukwu Ndukwe reports.
Mohammed Tijani Iliasu of the Mutar Adnan Day Science College, Kano, Oyelowo Ololuwa of ICAST International College of Arts, Science and Technology, Oyo State, and Christian Asha of Government Secondary School, Lafikbe, Ebonyi State, are upcoming artists and scientists trying to fix the issues of renewable energy, environmental degradation, and waste-to-wealth technology in Nigeria.
Our project is on biogas system for household cooking. It is a source of renewable energy, which is from methane gas. Methane gas is from organic matter, from waste materials like kitchen waste.
We convert slake lime obtained as a byproduct from the manufacture of ethane, that is commonly known as acetylene gas, to caustic soda.
I invented a thermodynamics biogas generator. The generator is beyond generating electricity. It can be used to power other heavy equipment because it uses biogas from cow dung and then palm wine In the absence of candle, you can use palm wine that has fermented.
For the GMNTA ETV Esosa Ekponwe, the future of Nigeria is bright with young talented scientists across the nation.
You know, some children, they have some hidden talents. This is an avenue for them to come to bed, to bring up what they have in them. If you go around, you see one little girl, picture she gets a drawing out of you and looks exactly like you.
Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, was on hand to inspect the children exhibition to boost their morale.